I don't think these people signed it. You didn't sign it?
No, it was, yeah, we didn't get
Yes.
to sign it yet.
Hello, everybody. My name is Ann Whitemare, and I'm the chairperson of the Pembroke Historical Society that's bringing you this fabulous event tonight. There is a sign-up sheet going around for just a, disclosure? A release. So if you're on the FBI's most wanted list.
Don't want to sign it.
Sorry, you might not want to sign it. We are going to be recording this just because we want to be able to, there's people who didn't make it today who want to be able to see this. So a couple things. The Pembroke Historical Society has been around since 1982, and we know that because one of the founding members is here with us today. And we are here to bring local history to all ages and all interests. So all of you got a flyer with a little bit about Pembroke history on it, and a plea for money, which should not be a surprise to anybody. We are a completely volunteer organization. 100% of what you do goes to bringing programs and bringing things like this. We also want your feedback. We want to know what kind of things do you want us to do, and what kind of things could you care less about. So there should be a little form in there to sign, and if you were to include a check with that, we wouldn't be sad. That would be great. You won't hold it against us. We are going to be having our annual meeting June 20th at the home of Judith Godfrey, who has a beautiful several century old house. And if you're a member, you are invited to join, and we talk about what direction we're going to go in the next year. That also being said, we would love to have some people on our board who have interest and ideas. We don't have to have people who know the whole history of Pembroke. We need people who are interested in the history of Pembroke. We have a couple really great people here, and we've lost some fabulous people, including Jim Howard. This is his swan song. He's going to be missed. And we are going to be meeting Saturdays and Sundays, and so we usually meet about 4 or 5 times a year. So if that's something you're interested in, you can come to a meeting. You are not signed in blood if you just come to a meeting out of interest. We'll let you know when the next one is, and we'll put you together. So that's a plug. So I got money, I got people, and I think that's the main things. I am going to let Jim take over, and whoever's speaking know that there's this little important microphone here that you have to take care of, and I think that's all you do is just clip it on.
That's it, just clip it on, and it will do the trick. First of all, I want to thank you all for coming out for this event today. I want to also take a moment to introduce you to Tim Sheehan, who is the new library director, who's been handling all the extra chairs back there. So please greet Tim. He's the new library director here in town, and we're delighted to have him be here tonight to help open and close the room. I want to give some thanks right at the beginning to some people who really inspired this idea. When I was still pastoring First Congregational Church, I started doing what's called community office hours, where the pastor goes out into the community, and I was at Dunkin' Donuts down in Allenstown, and I sat by myself, but there were these 2 tables I learned of Catholics who came right after Mass. And they eventually said, well, why don't you sit with us? Showing great hospitality and welcome. I appreciated that. And I got to know them over the years. And it was their conversations about what it was like growing up here, particularly Bob Gerard, who inspired me to put together this program. So I want to give a shout out there. I also want to give a shout out to Larry Perrin. Larry was hoping to be here tonight, and he forgot his cane and any number of other things didn't work out for him to be able to be here. So But I do want to thank him for pulling some of his photo books together. And if you know Larry and you have a chance to chat with him or visit with him and see some of his photo albums, they're really, really amazing. So I hope that you'll do that. And then all of our speakers tonight, I want to thank you for being able to come out and do this with us. The keynoters are going to be limited to about 10 minutes so that we can give the rest of you time to answer questions or make your own 2 cents worth of commentary. And so that's the plan. The big apology that I've got to give, because I'm the one that organized this, and so I'm the one that messed up the publicity. I swear, everything I had Hector's last name spelled correctly, except I didn't proofread the flyer, and so it got incorrectly put out there. So I apologize for that. And with that in mind, who of our 4 keynote speakers, who grew up here from like birth? Not just you. Well, yeah, some of you are keynoters. Some of you are just grew up from birth. Florence, that's great. Yeah, I was really, so Tom, you were one of the early ones from birth as well. Yeah, very good. And so I know Armand was later, right? Yeah, Armand was a little later. And how about Hector? Is Hector Emond here? Oh, maybe you didn't make it. Oh.
Larry's coming in.
Oh, Larry's coming back in?
No, he's coming in.
Oh. Oh, okay. Very good. So anyway, why don't we start with Florence, since you are the prettiest of the group by far. Might as well have you be the one to start us off here. And if you're going to move sufficiently from the podium, then you need to put this in your pocket, but otherwise you can just clip this on you. Okay?
Yep.
Thank you.
I should be on channel 9. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Florence Woods. I grew up here as Florence Batchelder. Down across from Pembroke Park was the Batchelder home. And a few houses up was where my parents purchased in, let me think now, August 1942, 3 acres, a New England style house with an attached shed and barn for $4,500. When Larry and I left that, it'll be 15 years ago in July, we moved to Canterbury. And when we left, we were paying more than that in taxes. So where to start? Marie called me and asked if I would come tonight. And even though I now live in Canterbury, of course, my heart's in Pembroke. It's where I grew up. I helped fundraise for this very building, along with Marilyn Ross, and several other activities. So I was like, ooh, I have too much for 10 minutes. So I brought a few things that you can look at later if you wish. But I want to start, I was born during the war. My earliest memory in Pembroke is the homecoming of my Uncle Walker from the Pacific Theater he had served. And he came back in 40, let me look. The Army gave him a box where his personal belongings are, and they are there today in my home. On the cover of the box is every place he was stationed from Fort Ord, California, on October 3rd, 1943, until 1944, I think it's September. But it goes all the way down, and back home after being in Japan. At home, I have his albums, black and white photographs that are beautiful, and he was so neat, he labeled every single one. But I could do the whole program on that, so you don't get that. And he has here, Home Sweet Home, January 11th, 1946. So I was 3 years old when he came home, and I have a photograph of him in his uniform, and I have his patches at home. And in his belongings was this box. And I had to bring it because I was hoping there'd be some youngsters here tonight, because they have no idea what this little stamp means. It says, "For victory, buy United States war bonds and stamps." So that was an incentive, hopefully, for people to purchase those chocolates. And that leads me, I will leave my notebook up here after, because we're not going to go through it, except for a few things that I'm going to pull out. In here also is my uncle's meal card, and I want you to know that Knapp shoes cost a big sum of $4.95. And there's the proof. Okay. Huh. Somewhere in here I have a ration book. Here it is. Now, those of you who lived through the war know that there were ration coupons. This is a photograph of my parents with me on the day I was christened at the Congregational Church. In this ration wallet is certificate of registrar. This certifies that Florence A. Batchelder, Route 1, County Merrimack, Suncook, New Hampshire, 18 inches long, 18 and blue-eyed blonde. 4 days old, so this was in February, and signed. And this was to ensure that my parents could purchase milk for the baby. And one more thing about World War II. Does anybody know what this is? Sandra, of course you know. Nobody knows? It does look like an apple bucket, but it's not. It's a bomb bucket. And it was, if you were on the farm and you had an incendiary bomb come down, you were supposed to keep this filled with sand, by the way. So you filled it with sand when it was issued to you. And then if a bomb came, an incendiary bomb, you were to put it in here to discard it. Okay, all right. So my first memory was Uncle Walker coming home, and he was a twin. My father had twin brothers, older than him, and a sister younger. So the 40s. I remember my mother making clothing for me out of grain bags. They came printed. They were cotton cloth, and some of the prints were very pretty. And also, I started school at the grammar school, as they called it back then. And then by the time my girls went there, it was Pembroke Elementary School, but it was grammar school in my days, and it was grades 1 through 8. And I can tell you the name of all 8 teachers. And of course, my favorite principal was Manson Donahue. And one of the activities that I remember most about the years down there was recess. We ran outside fast to claim one of those flat pieces of granite so we could play jacks on them. And I know Norma played jacks. She's a little bit ahead of me in school. And the other thing that we played was marbles. Because we had sand, you know, we didn't have a tarred playground all the years I was there. And it was just that main old building that I wished I could have been available to go see last weekend, and I'm glad they did that. I remember when the 51 edition went on in the gym, of course, and one of my favorite times in school was 4th grade. Mrs. Thompson, after our noontime recess, she wanted us to relax, you know, put your head down on the desk for a few minutes, and she read to us. The first chapter book she read was Heidi, and the second one was The Secret Garden, and is still a wonderful classic today. In 5th grade, we had Flossie Stone, and she had learning centers in her room. She was way ahead of her time. And she had a fish, which was a paddle. Some people may remember it. And then the other memory about that school was when they put the addition on, we'd go down from the old grammar school and have to go through the basement to get over to that wing. And a lot of people were afraid down there because it was a basement. And of course, we had air raids, so we were trained to get under our desks when those tests came out. And then the other part of my growing up years that I remember so very much was 4-H. We had a wonderful 4-H. We had more than one club in this town. And Girl Scouts, for a short period of time, they didn't last, when I was growing up, as long as 4-H was forever. In the church, there were youth groups that bred some happy memories. And you know, we hear today it takes a village. And growing up in Pembroke, when I was growing up, it was small town, everybody knew everybody. And if the Haggetts were haying up in North Pembroke and there was a storm looming, everybody would go up there and help them load their hay and get it in. My dad farmed here on Pembroke Street, and during World War II, we supplied milk to Mount St. Mary's College. And that's where I first was introduced to sisters. The nuns loved kids, and they would see my brother and I out in the truck, and they'd come out and greet us and made us feel welcome on that campus. I've forgotten now how many head of cattle we had our herd across the street in what then was the Holt farm. And it was all beautiful fields down, quite a ways down at that time. And we had a bull in that barn that my father could say, "Okay, Joe, put your ring right here," and he would. And I never was afraid of him. but you let my mother step 1 foot in that barn floor, and she knew better than go visit Joe. One day, Dad had sold Joe, so the cattle truck comes to pick him up. And Dad's at work at Merrimack Farmers Exchange. So my mother goes over, and the cattle dealer said, well, could you just hold him while I back up closer to... She said, no, I don't think so. So he had to figure out how to get him in by himself. So that's as much as I have time for, but I'll be here after if anybody wants to ask questions. And I will leave my notebook up here, which has some memories from the 4 Girls Memorial Library fundraiser. I worked on that. And when I was touring a year ago at PA, I realized a lot of people didn't know much about that in the background. So I have all the newspaper clippings in there. And Pembroke Fire Department's 100th anniversary. I have a souvenir in there too. So enjoy. I got the flag.
You got the flag, you did a good job. Well, hopefully, some of the stuff that Florence said triggered some thoughts that you may have had, either about teachers or schools or principals or whatever. So who would like to just make a comment, something you remember? You don't have to make a speech, you just have to say things you remember. Sure.
Florence doesn't remember the